Yes! Ha ha! You are correct, sir. Or madam. Or whatever you identify as. 300 subscribers on YouTube. Now, that's not a lot to some people, but to me, that is a vast, large amount of people. And so, as a thank you, got a little something special I was saving, but you know what? Fuck it, I'll do it today. Do it today, because I love you guys. Thank you so much. If we can make it to 500 before the year is out, we're all going to get laid. But I'm not bullshitting. I will find a way. Thank you guys. Now, without further ado, let's jump into what happens when cryptids attack. Boom, 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 boom. There are predators we know. The wolf in the forest, the shark in the ocean, the bear in the wilderness. We have named them, studied them, learned their patterns, and accepted the risks they present. Well, you know, to a degree. But there are other killers. Beasts that leave tracks that don't match any field guide. Creatures that kill with methods no zoologist can explain. Entities that take human beings and livestock alike, leaving behind scenes of violence that defy logical explanation. This episode is not about the predators we understand. This is about the things that hunt in the spaces between the known and the unknown. The creatures that may be watching you right now, from the tree line, from the shadows, from the places your mind refuses to acknowledge. These are the true stories of the blood farms, the man-eaters, and the vanished. These are the cases that remain unsolved, unexplained, and utterly terrifying. The modern era of unexplained livestock slaughter began not in some remote wilderness, but in the United States in the winter of 1953, in the small town of Bladenboro, North Carolina. For 10 days, this community of fewer than 2,000 people found itself under siege by a predator that seemed to have stepped out of a nightmare. The attacks began in late December, when residents discovered their dogs, goats, and other livestock slaughtered under circumstances that would haunt the region for decades to come. The victims were not merely killed, they were crushed, decapitated, and drained of blood. Their bodies were found with 2 puncture wounds on the neck, and little to no blood remained in the corpse or on the ground around it. Local hunters reported hearing strange screams in the night, unlike any known animal in the region. The beast of Bladenboro, as it came to be known, killed at least 8 dogs in the initial wave alone, including hounds and other pets found near homes or kennels. The creature displayed an almost surgical precision in its killing, leaving the bodies otherwise untouched, except for the fatal wounds and the missing blood. Eyewitnesses described a large, cat-like creature, one that moved with supernatural speed, and seemed to vanish without leaving tracks. The town organized hunting parties, professional trackers were brought in, traps were set. Yet the beast evaded them all, continuing its reign of terror until it simply stopped, as mysteriously as it had begun. To this day, the identity of the beast of Bladenboro remains unknown. Official reports suggest a wildcat, perhaps a bobcat or a mountain lion, but experienced hunters who saw the victims insisted that no native cat could cause such damage or drain bodies so completely of blood. The pattern established at Bladenboro would repeat across the Americas for the next 70 years. In 1975, 2 decades before the term Chupacabra would enter the public consciousness, the small town of Moca, Puerto Rico, suffered a devastating wave of livestock deaths that would remain unsolved. Hundreds of chickens, goats, and cows were found dead overnight, every single animal entirely drained of blood, though through 1 to 3 small circular surgical-like incisions. No meat was eaten, no tracks were left in the mud. Puerto Rican police and veterinarians launched formal investigations but could find no biological matches for the wounds. Initially, authorities blamed a satanic cult, because that's what we always do. But the surgical precision and absolute lack of blood pooling at the scene made this explanation untenable. The vampire of Moca, as locals called it, operated with impunity, leaving behind only the hollowed corpses of animals that should have been safe in their pens and coops. The phenomena would not remain confined to Puerto Rico. In 1995, the Chupacabra, literally goat sucker, erupted into the public consciousness when similar attacks spread throughout the Americas. Dozens of goats, hens, rabbits, and parakeets, yes, even parakeets, were found dead, drained entirely of their blood through small, puncture-like wounds. The creature described by witnesses varied, but common elements included a reptilian or canine appearance, spikes along the back, and glowing red eyes. The attacks were characterized by the same vampiric exsanguination seen at Moca and Bladenboro. Animals killed not for meat, for blood, with surgical precision that no known predator could replicate. In the year 2000, the desert city of Calama, Chile, became the next site of inexplicable slaughter. Farmers woke to find over 30 goats and sheep killed inside heavily reinforced pens. The structural nature of the pens required immense physical strength or agility to breach without waking the guard dogs. The victims were found in uniform piles, drained of blood via deep punctures inside the throat or behind the ears. The Chilean government dispatched agricultural specialists to investigate. They officially blamed, quote, feral dogs, unquote, though local farmers fiercely rejected this because dogs naturally tear flesh, scatter bones, and leave chaotic pools of blood, none of which occurred at Calama. The animals were killed cleanly, precisely, and completely exsanguinated. Brazil joined the pattern in 2011 when the rural municipality of Ouro Fino, Minas Gerais, became the site of a massacre. A small-scale farmer discovered his entire flock of nearly 40 chickens dead inside a locked wire mesh coop. There were no broken boards, dugout floors, or torn wiring. Chickens had no missing feathers or torn flesh, ruling out common local predators like foxes, tegus, or opossums. Each bird featured a singular tiny puncture wound on the neck or breast. When handled, the carcasses were completely bloodless and unusually light, as if internally hollowed of fluids. The coop remained secure, yet everything inside was dead, drained, and discarded. Mexico added its own variation in 2018 when ranches in the state of Chihuahua suffered attacks across 3 consecutive nights. Over 50 goats and sheep were killed. Ranchers reported an eerie, total silence of the night's attacks, noting that even the territorial guard dogs refused to bark and instead hid inside their kennels. The livestock suffered uniform, cauterized-looking triangular puncture wounds near the jugular. Local veterinarians noted that the edges of the wounds appeared mildly burned or chemically altered, and the internal chest cavities contained 0 traces of blood. The phenomenon was dubbed the laser punctures case, though no explanation satisfied the ranchers who had lost their livelihoods in 3 nights of silent, efficient slaughter. While the Americas grappled with vampiric livestock killers, Eastern Europe faced its own wave of inexplicable predation. In 2012, the town of Robesonian, Ukraine, became the site of a bizarre series of attacks that defied explanation. A predator managed to break into locked, heavy-duty coops across multiple properties, killing dozens of chickens and turkeys in single nights. Unlike standard weasel or marten attacks, which are chaotic, messy, and involve eating the heads or organs of the birds were found stacked neatly in rows or piles. They displayed small twin-poke bite marks on the neck, with their bodies completely white and dry of blood. No blood drops were found on the coop floors or surrounding grass. The precision suggested intelligence and purpose beyond animal instinct. In 2016, the region of Chorvinsky Oblast, Ukraine, experienced months of terror as hundreds of chickens and rabbits were systematically exterminated inside secure barns in the village of Rukshin. The predator possessed the highly unusual intelligence required to manipulate latches and lift heavy wooden doors. A villager eventually killed an unidentified hairless fox-like creature with an elongated torso, large ears, and pronounced fangs using a pitchfork. Local veterinarians examined the carcass and stated its skeletal structure and muscular layout didn't match any known native Ukrainian fauna, though official statements dismissed it as a mutated canine or jackal. It's possible. Chernobyl. The creature was photographed before disposal, and images circulated among cryptozoological researchers who noted similarities to descriptions of the Chupacabra from the Americas. Throughout the 2010s, rural settlements in the Moscow and Novosibirsk Oblast of Russia experienced a series of overnight raids targeting small homestead buildings, wiping out flocks of domestic sheep and goats. The attacks lacked the messy carnage of local gray wolves or stray dog packs. Animals were killed by a single bite mechanism that pierced directly into the carotid artery, through which the blood was seemingly extracted. The carcasses were left fully intact with no meat consumed. What a waste. The local media labeled the unseen entity the Siberian Chupacabra, drawing parallels to the American phenomenon despite the vast geographical distance. In 2014, remote mountain villages among the Bulgarian-Serbian border reported a spike in highly vicious deaths of young goats. Local folklore blamed the Karakanjul, a mythical nocturnal predator, but the physical evidence was starkly modern. Goats were found suspended from low tree branches or wedged tightly into rock crevices, having been dragged away silently from their herds. The bodies exhibited clean, deep neck punctures with a total lack of standard predatory claw marks or tearing. The positioning of the bodies suggested display rather than consumption, as if the killer were marking territory, sending a message. Very disturbing. Let alone to hurt or kill the goats, but to hang them from trees and shove them in rock crevices. Jeez. Anyways, sorry. I'm an animal lover. I can't help it. While livestock killings terrify rural communities, it's the deaths of human beings that truly test our understanding of the natural order. The most famous case of an unknown predator killing human beings remains the beast of Gévaudan, which terrorized the province of Gévaudan, France, between 1764 and 1767. While this predates our primary time frame, it establishes the template for all that would follow. A creature or creatures that killed over 100 people, often decapitating victims or mangling them in ways inconsistent with wolf attacks. The creature displayed a preference for human flesh over livestock, often ignoring easier prey to attack people in broad daylight. Despite organized hunts involving thousands of participants and the killing of several large wolves, the attacks continued until they mysteriously ceased. Modern analysis suggests multiple predators may have been involved, possibly including exotic animals escaped from menageries. Some suspect a lion, some suspect a hyena, etc., etc. But the true identity of the beast of Gévaudan remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. In 1922, Tanganyika, now Tanzania, became the site of a series of attacks that would enter the annals of cryptozoology. In the village of Lindi, a native constable was found dead under circumstances that baffled colonial authorities. The constable had been mutilated, and clutched in his fist and snagged in the buckles of his uniform were tufts of gray, matted fur that belonged to no leopard anyone knew of. Two men reported that they were passing the marketplace at the time and saw a huge brindled cat jump out of the shadows and attack the askari, the officer. The old Arab governor who brought them in to the investigating officer informed him that the Mngwa had visited Lindi several times within memory. A couple of nights later, another constable was attacked in similar manner and mutilated. The Mngwa, described as a giant gray man-eating cat larger than any known lion or leopard, had struck again. The first samples were examined by zoologists who couldn't match them to any known African felid. The attacks ceased as mysteriously as they had begun, but the memory of the Mngwa persists in East African folklore to this day. The Nandi bear of Kenya presents another enduring mystery of African cryptozoology. In the early 1900s, British colonists and native Kenyans alike reported encounters with a large bear-like or hyena-like creature that attacked livestock and humans with equal ferocity. In around 1914, one was reported to have been killed near Kapsawar after killing several villagers. Another example of a man-eating Nandi bear struck in that same year in an unnamed Kenyan village, where the creature reportedly climbed through the roof of a hut and killed all of its inhabitants. The other villagers responded by lighting the hut on fire with the bear still inside, killing it. Western hunters shot at the beast on numerous occasions, but without success. The Nandi bear has eluded both hunters and researchers alike to remain unclassified by the scientific community. Yet the reports of its attacks on humans and livestock continue to surface from the remote regions of western Kenya. Some predators don't merely kill, however. They erase their victims entirely. In 2019, Ben Tyner, a tough, deeply experienced ranch manager, vanished into the backcountry of Merritt, British Columbia. A few days later, his horse was found fully tacked, completely unharmed, but wandering aimlessly. When searching the area, trackers found highly disturbing, scattered physical evidence that suggested a massive, violent struggle, but Tyner's body was never fully recovered. The case remains classified as an unsolved missing persons investigation with heavy undertones of foul play or a catastrophic animal attack. The complete disappearance of a large, armed, fully capable cowboy off of his horse, without the horse being harmed or spooked to death, baffled local authorities. The sheer lack of remains alongside signs of extreme local violence points heavily to an attack by a predator capable of instantly neutralizing a human and carrying them away cleanly, leading to ongoing regional folklore about Sasquatch or an undocumented mountain predator. In 2022, Craig Clouatre, Clouatre, went missing while foraging for shed elk antlers in the rugged wilderness of the Absaroka Beartooth Mountains near Yellowstone. When his body was recovered after an intense search, the scene was described as horrific. He had suffered catastrophic trauma and dismemberment. Park and state officials attribute the death to a chance encounter with a grizzly bear. Local trackers and anomalous phenomena researchers questioned that narrative. Clouatre was an expert woodsman who knew the terrain intimately. The absolute savagery, specific placement of the remains, and the lack of a typical bear cache where bears bury their prey led to theories regarding an undocumented apex predator roaming the high-altitude wilderness. The case of Kitten Carnegie brings us to Saskatchewan, Canada. In 2005, Carnegie, a 22-year-old geological engineering student, went for a walk near a remote mining camp at Point's North Landing. He never returned. His body was found heavily mutilated, his flesh stripped, and clear signs that he had been stalked and aggressively run down. After a lengthy and highly contested inquest, the death was officially ruled as the first documented fatal attack by wild wolves in modern North American history. Prior to this case, wildlife biology strictly maintained that healthy wild wolves do not hunt and kill humans in North America. The extreme violence of the mauling and the fact that his tracks showed that he was fleeing from something that completely overpowered him with unnatural speed caused many in the cryptozoological community to theorize that a dire wolf variant or an unclassified canine cryptid was using the remote mining dumps to hunt. In 2018, Amber Cornack, working as a grizzly bear researcher in the Cabinet Mountains of Montana, was blindsided from behind and suffered horrific skull fractures and severe lacerations to her neck and back. What baffled researchers was that Cornack was highly trained, carrying bear spray and actively looking for signs of wildlife. The entity that attacked her approached with absolute silent stealth through thick brush, striking with a level of targeted predatory precision, crushing the back of her skull. She survived. Oddly enough, she survived, but local trackers noted that this felt more akin to a predatory ambush cat than a defensive bear strike. Cornack survived and was able to activate a beacon where she was later found, but I don't think she's offered up any useful information as far as what it was exactly that attacked her. In 2013, reclusive resident Patricia Ritz lived on a rural property in Ohio County, Kentucky. That's confusing. After neighbors didn't see her for several days, police did a welfare check and discovered a nightmarish scene. Only her skull and jawbone remained on the property. Authorities concluded that she was overwhelmed, killed, and entirely devoured by a pack of up to 50 wild dog hybrids she kept on her land. But true crime researchers and canine behaviorists noted the extreme rarity of a pack completely consuming their master down to bare bones without leaving any clothing or typical scatter patterns. The absolute clean state of the scene fueled local rumors that something far more predatory and wild had breached the enclosure and wiped out both the owner and parts of the pack as well. The United States has its own catalog of aggressive cryptids that seem to blur the line between flesh and spirit, between animal and something else entirely. In 1971, the town of Folk, Arkansas became the center of a phenomena that would inspire films and haunt the region for decades. The Folk monster, also known as the Boggy Creek monster, was not content to remain in the shadows. Unlike the shy, elusive Bigfoot of the Pacific Northwest, this creature approached homes, livestock pens, and even vehicles. A rash of sightings in 1971 included alleged attacks on a rural Folk family's home. According to their story, a big, hairy monster struck their home several times, reaching through windows and trying to get inside. Though apparently hurt, the family said that they shot at the creature. It fled into the nearby woods. Initial sightings were concentrated in the Jonesville and Boggy Creek area, where the creature was blamed for the death of local livestock. The creature was described as 7 feet tall, covered in dark hair, with glowing red eyes, and smelled like rotting meat. The attacks on the family home were not isolated. Reports continued of livestock killed and mutilated, of dogs found dead with throats torn out, and of hunters hearing screams in the night that no animal they recognized could make. The summer of 1972 brought terror to Louisiana, Missouri, also confusing, in the form of Momo, the Missouri monster. This wasn't a gentle giant. Momo was described as a huge black hairy beast with a putrid smell that attacked 2 women who were out having a picnic. The creature was said to have prowled the forest of Star Hill, leaving behind not just sightings, but physical evidence in the form of 3-toed footprints and mutilated animal remains. Before the swampy land of southeastern Missouri was drained to become the rich farmland of today, sightings of an immense hairy humanoid responsible for killing livestock were reported often. The 1972 flat was not an isolated phenomenon. It coincided with a broader early 1970s wave of cryptid and UFO reports across the Midwest, including mutilated cows and lights in the sky in nearby Ellsbury. Investigators, including Lauren Coleman, the famous Lauren Coleman, drove to Louisiana to interview witnesses, documenting a creature that seemed to combine the aggression of a bear with the elusiveness of a phantom. In 1973, the small town of Albany, Kentucky, became the focus of cryptozoological investigation when Lauren Coleman documented reports of 3 black, bushy-tailed, quote, giant monkeys, unquote, that were said to have slaughtered livestock. These devil monkeys, as they came to be known, were described as powerful enough to cross a field in just a few massive leaps, attacking their victims, livestock, pets, and wildlife, by tearing with razor-sharp claws and biting with sharp teeth and strong jaws. The Appalachian region, in particular, has been a hotspot for devil monkey encounters. Local folklore often portrays the creatures as a menacing predator, capable of attacking livestock and even humans. In 1934, a family in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, reported being attacked by a large monkey-like animal. The creature was described as leaping from tree to tree and moving with incredible speed. Reports from the region include missing pets, mutilated livestock, and encounters with creatures that combine simian and canine features in ways that defy zoological classification. That sounds like a gugway to my humble ears. The Ozark Mountains of Arkansas and Missouri had their own resident terror, the Ozark Howler. Since the 1950s, families in the Ozarks have shared stories of a large, horned creature with glowing eyes, often linked to livestock deaths. Eyewitnesses have reported finding strange, oversized footprints in the mud and stumbling upon the mutilated carcasses of livestock, which some attribute to the creature's predatory nature. The Howler is described as bear-like in shape, with a dark-colored, shaggy coat, but with horns or ear tufts that give it a demonic appearance. In 1897, the Arkansas Gazette reported a monster emerging from a Boone County cave to devour livestock, suggesting the phenomena predates modern cryptozoological documentation by decades. Montana's Chupacabra represents another persistent predator of livestock. Between December 2005 and November 2006, an unusual-looking wolf-like beast killed 120 sheep in Macomb and surrounding counties. It was shot on November 2, 2006 in Garfield County after a reign of terror that saw ranchers losing entire flocks. Initially, Montana wildlife officials were unable to identify the 106-pound reddish-yellow animal. The creature was described as hyena-like, with a sloping back and a cry that started low and ended in a high-pitched, almost human-like wail. Ranchers described livestock panicking when the cry was heard, and the method of killing, biting all the animals on the right side of the ear, suggested a specific, repeated pattern inconsistent with random predation. Some ranchers believe that Chupacabra killed over 200 sheep in total, though official counts stopped at 120. The United Kingdom, despite its reputation for being thoroughly explored and documented, harbors its own phantom predators. The Beast of Exmoor gained significant traction in the late 1970s and early 1980s, with a notable surge in reported sightings and incidents of livestock attacks. In 1983, a farmer in South Moulton, Devon, reported a startling loss. 100 sheep had been killed, apparently violently, over a period of 3 months. The attacks were attributed to a large panther-like cat, though the Ministry of Agriculture's investigation concluded there was no verifiable evidence of exotic cats loose in the UK. The livestock deaths gave no hint of big cat involvement, according to official reports, but offered no clear explanation as to what had been killing the animals. The Beast of Bodmin Moor in Cornwall generated similar reports of livestock killed in ways inconsistent with foxes or domestic dogs, including puncture wounds to the throat and distinctive claw-raking patterns associated with large felines. Sightings cluster around the villages of Bolventor St. Breward and the Fowey River Valley, with reports continuing into the 21st century despite official denials. The Cumbrian region of England has its own history of mysterious attacks. In the 19th century, a series of livestock slaughters and the unsolved, throat-mutilated deaths of several rural peasants were blamed on a mysterious phantom hound or unidentified beast that reportedly drained the blood of its victims. The Kindle vampire dog, as it came to be known, operated with the same vampiric precision seen in the American cases, leaving bodies bloodless and wounds that suggested surgical precision rather than animal tearing. The 21st century has not brought answers, only more questions, more blood, more evidence that something is hunting humanity with increasing boldness. The cases that follow represent only a fraction of the documented attacks by unidentified predators in the modern era. Each one has been investigated by authorities, and each one remains unexplained. And each one proves that the darkness still has teeth. The Ape Canyon Massacre, 1924. In the summer of 1924, a group of 5 miners led by Fred Beck, prospecting in the canyon near Mount St. Helens, Washington, experienced an attack that would become foundational to Bigfoot lore, but which remains terrifying in its documented violence. The miners had been working their claim for several days when they began hearing strange whistling sounds and seeing large, shadowy figures moving in the tree line above their cabin. On the night of July 22nd, the creatures attacked. According to Beck's sworn testimony and contemporary newspaper accounts, the cabin was besieged by quote-unquote mountain devils that pelted the structure with rocks, attempting to break through the walls and grabbed at the miners through gaps in the logs. Beck fired his rifle at one creature he saw in the doorway, believing he hit it, but the assault intensified. The creatures, described as large, hair-covered, and walking upright, continued their attack for hours, shrieking and whistling in a way that the miners said sounded almost like a coordinated assault. The miners escaped at daylight, leaving their equipment behind, and reported the attack to local authorities. The physical damage to the cabin was documented by Forest Service personnel, including large rocks thrown with force sufficient to dent the roof and walls. The miners' terror was evident to all who interviewed them, and their story never wavered under questioning. And there's the Ruby Creek invasion of 1941. In the remote wilderness of British Columbia, near the community of Ruby Creek, a family experienced a home invasion that defies conventional explanation. In the fall of 1941, a large hair-covered creature repeatedly approached the family's cabin, eventually breaking through a window and entering the structure. The family, including children, fled in terror as the creature ransacked the interior. When they returned with neighbors and a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer, they found the cabin in disarray with large, human-like footprints surrounding the building. The track showed a creature with feet measuring 18 inches in length, far larger than any known human, with a stride indicating a height of over 7 feet. The family refused to return to the cabin, and the case was documented in RCMP files as, quote, an unknown animal intrusion, unquote. The physical evidence, the broken window, the interior damage, and the massive tracks remain unexplained. The Whitehall Siege, 1976. In the small town of Whitehall, New York, multiple police officers became witnesses to something that should not exist. Over several nights in August and September 1976, officers responded to reports of a large, aggressive creature near the outskirts of town. What they encountered challenged their understanding of reality. Officer Donald H. was the first to spot it, a massive, hair-covered figure standing over 7 feet tall, with glowing red eyes and a stench like rotting garbage. When the officer approached in his vehicle, the creature charged, slamming its fists into the car's hood with enough force to dent the metal. Multiple officers over several nights reported similar encounters, including one where the creature threw rocks at a police officer, shattering the windshield. The officers were armed, trained, and credible witnesses, yet they couldn't identify what they had seen, and their official reports describe a creature of, quote, unknown species, unquote, displaying unprecedented aggression toward law enforcement personnel. There's the Enfield Horror, 1973. In Enfield, Illinois, a family experienced 3 days of terror that would become known as the Enfield Horror. On May 25, 1973, Greg Garrett, a young boy playing in his backyard, was attacked by a creature he described as having 3 legs, grayish skin, and short arms ending in claws. The creature scratched the boy's leg and retreated into the darkness. The following night, the creature returned, attacking the family's dog and attempting to enter the house. Henry McDaniel, the father, grabbed a shotgun and fired at the creature as it tried to break through the front door. He reported hitting it, but the creature, described as standing 4 feet tall with a monkey-like face, large ears, and a body like a kangaroo, leaped an incredible distance and vanished. The Illinois State Police investigated and found scratch marks on the door and unusual 3-toed footprints in the yard. McDaniel, a Vietnam veteran and reliable witness, insisted until his death that he had shot something that was not an animal, not a human, but something else entirely. There's the Lizard Man assault, 1988. Christopher Davis was 17 years old when he encountered South Carolina's most famous cryptid on the night of June 29, 1988. Davis had stopped on a road near the Scape Ore Swamp to change a flat tire when he heard a sound behind him. He turned to see a creature emerging from the swamp, 7 feet tall, covered in dark scales, with 3 clawed fingers on each hand and glowing red eyes. The creature charged him. Davis ran for his car, but the creature grabbed the door as he tried to close it, then jumped onto the roof as Davis accelerated away. He later reported that the creature had claws powerful enough to dig into the metal roof of his 1976 Toyota Celica. When he finally shook the creature off by swerving, he drove directly to the sheriff's office. The damage to his car was documented, deep scratches in the roof and side panels that couldn't have been made by any known animal or human. Over the following weeks, other residents reported similar encounters, including one where the creature attacked a car occupied by a family, leaving the same distinctive claw marks. Sheriff's deputies found 3-toed footprints, 18 inches long, in the mud near the swamp. Beyond the sightings documented by Linda Godfrey, Michigan has experienced violent encounters with upright canines that go beyond mere observation. In 1987, a hunter in the Manistee National Forest reported being stalked for 3 hours by a creature that walked on 2 legs and displayed canine features. When he fired warning shots, the creature didn't flee but instead began to circle him, cutting off his retreat. He eventually escaped by climbing a tree and remaining there until dawn, watching the creature pace below. In 1994, a family camping near Reed City was awakened by something ramming their RV. When they looked through the window, they saw a large wolf-like creature standing on its hind legs, scratching at the aluminum siding with claws that left deep gouges. The creatures followed them for 2 miles as they drove away, keeping pace with the vehicle at 30 miles per hour. In 2001, a jogger in the Huron National Forest was tackled from behind by what he initially thought was a bear, but when he rolled over, he found himself staring into the eyes of a creature with a wolf's head and a human-like chest. He suffered broken ribs and deep lacerations before the creature inexplicably released him and walked away on 2 legs. In 1973, the rural areas of Pennsylvania experienced a wave of attacks attributed to a wild man or hairy biped. In Fayette County, a farmer reported finding several sheep killed by having their necks snapped and their bodies arranged in a circle. The predator had not eaten any of the meat. In Somerset County, a teenage girl was attacked while walking home from school, suffering scratches across her back from claws that left marks 12 inches apart, far wider than any bear. Her screams alerted neighbors, who found her unconscious and surrounded by large human-like footprints. In Westmoreland County, a hunting cabin was broken into and ransacked, with furniture smashed and large claw marks gouged into the wooden walls. The door had been torn from its hinges, requiring strength beyond any known human or animal in the region. In 1979, the town of Toluca, North Carolina, became the center of a series of attacks by a creature locals dubbed Nobby. Terrifying. The creature was described as 7 feet tall, covered in brown hair, and possessing an aggressive disposition unlike the typically shy Bigfoot. In October of that year, a farmer named C.E. reported that Nobby had attacked his cattle, killing 3 cows by breaking their necks and leaving them in a pile. The following week, 2 teenagers were chased from a fishing spot by a large hairy creature that threw rocks at them and pursued them for half a mile. The creature was reportedly shot at by local hunters on 3 separate occasions, but continued to appear around the town for several months. The creature was reportedly shot at by local hunters on 3 separate occasions, but continued to appear around the town for several months, often approaching homes and looking through windows. The final documented incident occurred in December 1979, when a family reported that the creature had attempted to break into their mobile home, leaving muddy handprints on the windows and door that measured 10 inches across. In 1998, the Turner family ranch in Oklahoma became the site of a prolonged siege by an unidentified predator. Over a period of 3 months, cattle were found mutilated in their pastures, with organs removed and the bodies drained of blood. The ranch was protected by 8-foot fences and guarded by trained cattle dogs, yet the predator operated with impunity. In September, Miss Turner reported seeing a large, hair-covered creature standing over one of the mutilated cows. When she screamed, the creature stood upright, revealing a height of over 7 feet, and walked toward her house. She fired a rifle at it, but the creature didn't flee immediately, instead pausing to look at her before slowly walking into the woods. Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agents documented the mutilations, but couldn't determine what was responsible. The attack ceased after the Turners installed motion-activated lights and electric fencing, but the family sold the ranch the following year, citing ongoing fear. On December 26, 2000, Mike Woolley was deer hunting in the woods near Folk, Arkansas, the same region terrorized by the Folk monster decades earlier, when he encountered something that would change his life. Woolley was at a tree stand when he heard something approaching. He expected a deer, but instead saw a massive, hair-covered creature walking on 2 legs. The creature stopped beneath his stand and looked up at him. Woolley, armed with a rifle, considered shooting, but found himself paralyzed by the creature's gaze. The creature then began to make a sound he described as, quote, like a woman screaming mixed with a panther's growl, unquote. It circled the tree for over an hour, preventing Woolley from descending. When he finally climbed down after dark, the creature was waiting. Woolley fired his rifle and the creature ran off, but he reported that it returned to his truck, shaking it and leaving dents in the metal before he managed to drive away. The encounter left Woolley traumatized, and he passed a polygraph test regarding his account. The Carter family in Tennessee experienced a decade of terror from an unidentified aggressive cryptid. Beginning in the early 1990s and continuing through the 2000s, the family reported regular visits from a large, hair-covered creature that would approach their house at night, peer through windows, and attempt to break into their livestock pens. Unlike typical Bigfoot reports, this creature was consistently aggressive on several occasions, charging family members who were armed and on their own property. In 2003, Miss Carter was attacked while hanging laundry, suffering scratches across her back that required medical attention. The creature was shot at multiple times by family members and visiting hunters, but always returned. The family documented the encounters with photographs of footprints and damaged property, and eventually moved from the farm in 2008, citing the ongoing harassment by, quote, something that wouldn't leave us alone, unquote. Between 2005 and 2007, the suburbs of London experienced a series of attacks attributed to a large, unidentified canid. In 2005, a man walking his dog in Ilford was attacked by what he described as, quote, a wolf-like creature, unquote, that bit his arm and attempted to drag him into the bushes. He fought it off with his walking stick, but required hospitalization for deep puncture wounds. In 2006, 2 children in Epping Forest were chased by a large gray animal that walked on 4 legs, but stood as tall as a man when it reared up. In 2007, livestock in the Romford area were found killed and partially eaten, with tracks indicating a large canine that was neither dog nor fox. Despite extensive searches by police and wildlife experts, no wolf or large dog was ever captured, and the attacks ceased as mysteriously as they began. In the Wayanad district of Kerala, India, a series of attacks between 2020 and 2022 left authorities baffled and locals terrified. Over 20 people were attacked by what victims described as a wolf-like creature that walked on 2 legs and targeted the throat. Unlike typical wolf attacks, which are defensive or predatory, these attacks seemed designed to terrorize. The creature would attack, inflict wounds, and retreat without attempting to kill or eat the victims. In 2021, a woman was attacked in her garden, suffering deep lacerations to her neck that she claimed were inflicted by a creature with a wolf's head and human-like hands. Medical examinations confirmed the wounds were caused by claws, not knives or any other weapons, and the pattern was inconsistent with any known Indian predator. Local police formed a special task force but never identified the attacker, and some officers privately admitted to villagers that the evidence suggested, quote, something not in our records, unquote. Remote Alaska has documented numerous attacks by creatures locals call hairymen or bushmen. In 1986, a hunting guide near Kodiak Island was attacked while sleeping in his tent, suffering broken ribs and deep scratches from claws. He reported that the creature had lifted his tent with him inside and slammed it against a tree. In 1994, a fishing party near the Yukon River was besieged for 3 nights by creatures that threw rocks at their camp, uprooted trees, and on the final night attacked their boat, leaving claw marks in the aluminum hull. Alaska State Troopers investigated but attributed the incidents to bears, despite the witnesses' insistence that the creatures walked upright and displayed coordinated, intelligent behavior inconsistent with bears. The White Thing of Tennessee, described as a large, white, dog-like creature with a shaggy coat and glowing red eyes, has been associated with attacks on humans and livestock since at least the 1920s. In 1925, a farmer in Cannon County was found dead in his field, his throat torn out, and his body surrounded by large, dog-like tracks that showed the creature had walked on 2 legs. In 1969, a motorist near Sparta reported that the creature had chased his car for 2 miles, keeping pace at speeds up to 40 miles per hour and left scratch marks on the rear bumper. In 2015, a family in Putnam County reported that the creature had killed their livestock and attempted to enter their house, leaving claw marks on the door frame and muddy prints showing a creature weighing over 300 pounds. Wisconsin has documented numerous attacks beyond the famous Beast of Bray Road. In 1992, a hunter in the Chequamegon National Forest reported being attacked by a large wolf-like creature that walked on 2 legs. The creature bit his arm, leaving puncture wounds that required stitches before he drove it off with a knife. In 2003, a family in Price County reported that a dog man had attacked their dog in their backyard, killing it and leaving it hanging from a tree branch 8 feet off the ground. In 2011, a jogger in Lincoln County was attacked by a large canine creature that bit his leg before being scared off by a passing car. The wounds were examined by a doctor who noted they were consistent with a large dog, but the witness insisted the creature had been walking upright and had hands, not paws. While the Beast of Bray Road is famous for sightings, several encounters involved direct aggression towards humans. In 1989, Lori Andrizzi reported that the creature had followed her car for over a mile, running on 2 legs and keeping pace at 30 miles per hour. In 1991, Dorestine Gibson was chased by the creature after it attacked her car, leaving deep scratches in the metal. In 2006, a group of 4 young people camping near Bray Road reported that the creature had circled their tent for hours, making growling sounds and occasionally striking the tent fabric with what felt like claws. In 2010, a hunter reported that the creature had attacked his tree stand, shaking it violently and attempted to climb up to him before he fired warning shots. In the 1990s, El Dorado Canyon State Park in Colorado experienced a series of attacks attributed to a large, black dog-like creature with glowing red eyes. In 1994, a hiker was bitten on the leg by the creature, suffering puncture wounds that required surgery. In 1996, a family camping in the park reported that the creature had attacked their tent, tearing through the fabric and scratching the father before they drove it off with a flare. Park rangers investigated but couldn't identify the animal, noting that no known predator in the region matched the description or the attack pattern. The Jersey Devil of the Pine Barrens has been associated with attacks on humans and livestock since 1909. In January 1909, a rash of sightings across South Jersey included reports of the creature attacking a trolley car in Haddon Heights, leaving claw marks on the roof, and attempting to enter a house in Camden, leaving scratch marks on the door. In 1927, a farmer reported that the creature had killed 12 of his chickens and left 3-toed footprints in the snow. In 1951, a group of boys reported being chased by the creature while exploring the woods near Leeds Point. In 2015, a motorist reported that a winged creature with red eyes had attacked his car on the Atlantic City Expressway, leaving dents on the roof. While many Jersey Devil stories are clearly folklore, the consistency of the physical evidence, 3-toed tracks, claw marks, and specific attack patterns across over a century suggests a persistent phenomena that defies easy explanation. While the Chupacabra is primarily known for livestock attacks, several cases involve human victims. In 1995, a woman in Puerto Rico reported being attacked by a creature that left 3 puncture wounds in her neck and drained enough blood to require hospitalization. In 2004, a man in Texas reported a similar attack with 2 puncture wounds and symptoms of blood loss. In 2016, a woman in Chile reported being attacked by a, quote, reptilian creature, unquote, that bit her arm and attempted to drag her away before she fought it off. While many of these cases are likely misidentifications or hoaxes, the consistency with livestock attack patterns suggests that if Chupacabra exists, it may not limit itself to animals. Following the initial attacks in May 1973, the infield horror was cited multiple times over the next year. In June 1973, a group of hunters reported seeing the creature near a creek, describing it as grayish with short arms and legs and looking like it was wearing a cloak. In August 1973, a farmer reported that the creature had killed several of his chickens, leaving them arranged in a circle. In January 1974, 2 teenagers reported being chased by the creature while driving on a rural road, claiming it kept pace with their car at speeds up to 30 miles per hour. The creature was never captured or killed, and the attack ceased after 1974, but the case remains one of the best documented cryptid attack flaps in American history. Deep within the coastal timberland of Copalis Beach, Washington, the damp Pacific fog thickens beneath a wall of ancient old-growth cedar. A suffocating expanse of emerald and rot where light rarely touches the forest floor. It was here during the late 1960s that a rural family fell victim to an entity so unnatural that their young 4-year-old could only conceptualize it through the violent, rustic stench it left in the air. The cowman. What began as subtle intrusions, a foul, heavy odor of wet hide and decay drift on the damp breeze, accompanied by the paralyzing sensation of unblinking eyes watching from the tree line, quickly dissolved into a nightmare of territorial malice. The horror materialized the evening the father investigated a breach in their field fence. Snagged on the top barbed wire was a mangled clump of coarse, foot-long reddish hair embedded with scrapings of gray flesh. The wire snapped and bent by immense brute force. Deep in the brush, the silence of the woods gave way to heavy, rhythmic thuds. Expecting a trespasser, the father leveled his revolver, only to watch the underbrush part to reveal a massive, shape-shifting nightmare. Upright on 2 pillar-like legs stood a monstrous creature over 7 feet tall and half as wide, its body shrouded in dark matted fur and its chest broad enough to block out the timber. When it turned, the dim light reflected off deep, glowing red eyes, its lips curled back to reveal terrible, jagged teeth. The encounter rapidly escalated from predatory stalking to total siege. Demonstrating terrifying speed, the beast charged through the dense alder trees like heavy machinery, snapping 4-inch tree trunks in its hands as it cut through the forest toward the family home. Gunshots fired into the dirt only momentarily deflected its trajectory as it stalked the perimeter, lunging out of the blackness. The terror culminated over a relentless weekend of harassment that ended with the family's homestead utterly ransacked and torn apart. Traumatized by the entity's overwhelming aggression and human-like handprints left smeared in the ruin, the family fled Copalis Beach, leaving their home abandoned to the fog and the ancient creature that claimed it. In 2020, Ruthie Mae Brown was walking near the Alabama-Louisiana border when she was completely overtaken and dismembered. The local coroner ruled it a, quote, pack attack, unquote. The community was left terrified by the scale of the violence, as no wild pack of that ferocity had ever been tracked in the immediate vicinity. Responding officers encountered a scene where multiple dogs were literally covered in blood, but questions remained about what could drive domestic animals to such frenzy and whether something else had initiated the attack. In December 2020, 28-year-old Christopher Whiteley, I've covered this story many times before, but it's just still so weird. Christopher Whiteley was found dead in a wooded area near Lipan in Hood County, Texas. The local sheriff's office and the medical examiner preliminarily attributed his death to a predatory wild animal attack, specifically naming a mountain lion. However, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, or TPWD, along with the USDA Wildlife Services, conducted an independent scene investigation and strongly disputed the claim, stating there was zero physical evidence, such as hair, tracks, or blood pooling patterns, consistent with a mountain lion or any known native wild predator. State biologists noted that Texas had no recorded fatal mountain lion attacks on humans in modern history. The official cause of death remains unresolved and mired in disagreement between local law enforcement and wildlife experts. In October 2019, 64-year-old hunter Mark Strittmatter disappeared in the dense timber of the Red River region of Idaho. When search teams located his body, the scene sparked immediate confusion among investigators. Strittmatter had suffered catastrophic targeted trauma strictly localized to his throat and neck, yet his hunting gear, rifle, and surrounding clothes were left untouched. State wildlife officials preliminarily pointed towards a rare predatory strike by a mountain lion or bear, but trackers on scene found zero animal prints, blood drag trails, or territorial caches in the surrounding brush. The lack of standard feeding behavior combined with surgical-like trauma led regional anomalous phenomena researchers to compare it to an attack by a silent, upright stalker rather than native Idaho fauna. In early 2021, a veteran hiker went missing in a secluded section of the Great Smoky Mountains along the Blount County border. Days later, search teams recovered the hiker's remains scattered across a steep ravine. Local authorities quickly attributed the death to a defensive black bear mauling, citing scavenging remains. However, volunteer search and rescue personnel noted severe scene anomalies. The victim's heavy canvas backpack had been torn completely in half down the frame with enormous tensile force, and deep 14-inch stride marks were pressed into the mud leading away from the body. The sheer brute strength required to snap the internal metal frame, coupled with the total absence of bear hair at the impact site, fueled persistent local theories of an aggressive, quote, upright canine, unquote, or relict hominid hunting the high ridges. In late 2017, an experienced off-trail dirt biker was found deceased near an abandoned cranberry bog deep within the New Jersey Pine Barrens. His motorcycle was still upright against a tree, engine idling. The rider lay several yards away with deep triangular lacerations across his upper torso and neck. State police initially investigated the incident as a collision or feral dog attack. However, county coroners noted that the tissue damage did not match canine bite marks, nor were there any tire tracks indicating a crash. The complete absence of sound, reported by nearby camp groups who heard the motorcycle engine running continuously without any screams or animal noise, suggested a lightning-fast ambush by an apex predator capable of striking instantly from the canopy above. In Quitman, Georgia, Courtney Williams was found completely torn apart, with responding officers encountering scenes where multiple dogs appeared to have been involved. The victim was discovered surrounded by animals covered in blood, yet the pattern of injury suggested something more organized than a typical feral dog attack. The ferocity of the mauling and the specific targeting of certain body parts echoed patterns seen in cases attributed to unknown predators. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park became the site of one of the most controversial animal attacks in recent memory when Dustin Groyd, G-R-O-U-I-D-D, an experienced 29-year-old camper, was sleeping in a hammock in a remote area of the park. He was attacked, dragged, and partially consumed by a predator. While officials classified it as an incredibly rare black bear attack and subsequently euthanized a bear found nearby, the case sparked intense online debate. Skeptics pointed out that the sheer force required to rip a grown man out of a suspended hammock, coupled with the lack of typical defensive struggle signs, made some believe an apex cryptid like a feral dog man or a much larger unidentified predator was responsible. What connects these cases across continents and centuries? The evidence suggests several disturbing possibilities. First, the surgical precision of many attacks, particularly the vampiric exsanguination of livestock, suggests intelligence and purpose beyond animal instinct. Predators kill to eat, yet these creatures often leave the meat untouched, taking only blood or specific organs. Second, the evasion of capture suggests either supernatural elusiveness or a level of cunning that exceeds known animal behavior. Organized hunts, professional trackers, and modern technology have failed to definitively identify or capture these predators. Third, the geographical clustering of attacks near water, crossroads, ancient sites, and burial grounds suggests these creatures may be drawn to places of power or transition, places where the veil between worlds grows thin, liminal areas. The witnesses to these attacks are not unreliable or prone to fantasy. They're farmers, ranchers, hunters, police officers, and experienced woodsmen, people who know the animals of their region and can distinguish between a dog, a wolf, a bear, and something that shouldn't exist. Their testimony, taken collectively, paints a picture of a world that is not as mapped or understood as we would like to believe. There are things in the forest, the swamps, the deserts, and the mountains that have not been classified, do not fit into our taxonomies, and that view humanity as prey. The attacks continue. The blood farms remain active. The man-eaters still hunt, and the vanished remain unaccounted for. We can choose to dismiss these cases as misidentifications, mass hysteria, or the work of known predators acting in unusual ways. The weight of evidence, Hundreds of cases across more than a century, documented by credible witnesses, investigated by authorities, and left unsolved, suggest otherwise. There are predators in the shadows. They're watching, they're waiting, and they're hungry. This episode that you've just heard represents only a fraction of the documented cases of attacks by unknown predators. For every incident recorded here, dozens more go unreported, dismissed by authorities, or buried in local archives. Creatures responsible for these attacks, whether they are unknown species, interdimensional travelers, or something else entirely, remain at large. They've proven themselves capable of killing livestock by the hundreds, of taking human lives with brutal efficiency, and of evading every attempt at capture or identification. What should terrify us most is not the violence of these attacks, but the implications behind them. We're not alone at the top of the food chain. There are things that hunt us, that farm our livestock for blood, that can enter our homes and our communities with impunity. That rhymed. The forests are deeper than we know. Shadows are darker than we admit, and the night is filled with teeth. The blood farm never closes. The harvest continues. Somewhere, right now, something is watching from the tree line, waiting for the sun to go down, waiting for dinner. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys liked it. I threw this together kind of on the fly as a as a thank you for 300 subs on YouTube. Man, thank you guys so much. That is fucking awesome. Like I said, we get to 500 by the end of the year, we're all going to get laid. Hey! You guys are the best. Seriously. Fucking love you guys. Love yourselves. Love each other. Take care of each other. We are all we got. We'll see you next time. We traverse the depths of deep weirdness, the peaks of high strangeness, and the outer limits of the Twilight Zone.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.